So we're going to start with the first question, which is, how do you extend identity management across multiple platforms, including cloud, rather than just on-prem? And we're going to start with Joe.
Absolutely. That's a great question to get started with. And it's really important kind of when you look at a lot of these applications, it's really important to understand, well, first of all, is the purpose and the risk that you have of those applications, and also the types of identities that's being used and the roles that people are using to access. Whether it be on-premise applications, traditional types of applications, whether it being applications that's sitting on, endpoints on the edge, whether it being SaaS-based applications which are being hosted in the cloud, or whether it being basically cloud environments that you're actually even hosting either your own infrastructure, your own platforms, or your own applications in virtual environments and containers. So many companies right now, especially this year, have been doing a lot of digital transformation. And there's very few companies that have a single cloud approach. They end up having either a very mixed of hybrid environments. They still have a lot of the traditional on-premise side of things. They're still hosting in data centers. It's partially virtualized, and also across multiple cloud providers, including SaaS applications. So one of the most important things is that you get into consolidating the access controls. If you're leaving people to going in individually into each of those systems, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be duplicating, replicating, and reusing the actually passwords and security controls across all of those systems, meaning when one gets compromised, you're actually exposing yourself to major risk across the many. So for organizations, it's really important to get a really good identity governance, to get something that allows you across all of those systems to single kind of purpose verify the identity of a user. So this really gets into making sure as they're logging into those systems, that you have a consolidated governance system that allows you to make sure that you can actually have visibility into when people are logging into the systems, how long they're using it, and also what security controls are being applied. And this gets into a lot of organizations who take a single sign-on approach. But it's important that single sign-on doesn't necessarily enhance the security controls. And in fact, it actually allows you to do better provisioning and unprovisioned capabilities. So single sign-on should always be augmented with additional security controls, such as identity access governance, such as multi-factor authentication and privileged access. And by taking that approach, it will allow you to get better transparency and visibility and auditability across that multi-hybrid cloud environment that many organizations are facing today.
Brilliant. Okay. Over to you, Lorraine.
So my responses today are really going to be from like a CISO side in the business and sort of how the business is seeing it. So, for me, it's about looking at an approach that's aligned to your business, your roadmap. You should be having this sort of laid out and understanding that identity and access management is an iterative process. So a lot of people sort of get it, plug it in, and off they go. It's not just for Christmas, it's for life. So it's really about making sure that we get these processes and roadmaps aligned to what we're doing. Who's there, what are they doing, how do you manage them, and what do they need to do? So it's really about setting those parameters and those statements and really offering really good governance and maintenance after that. So I think I don't believe technology is the solution, only solution. I think we also have to look at, we talked about it before, the management and the governance side. I think we have to have good processes, and I think you also have to see, we see identity coming from all over the place. So we're seeing it federated around. It's also looking at, you said consolidation, but I've looked at it more on the, where is my authoritative source? What am I using as that single point of truth? And knowing that I've got all these federated areas that are pulling in identity information, and how am I going to use that? I want to ensure that I still have that ethos of, one user, one identity, regardless of where they're federating across or utilizing in the system. So hence I've taken as much single sign-on as possible for that process. But also things about collaboration between HR, IT, and the business, right? If we don't have any of those people on board, you can run off with IT systems and go and develop it, and then HR said, but that's not how we provision people. I don't have role-based access. It's just Jimmy's coming in and he's needing this access, and the manager's got to create it. So I think you really need to ensure that you've got a roadmap that includes all of the business and the right people within that business, and that it's all aligned and moving at the same time, and that you can actually bring these teams together. User experience is what it's for.
Excellent. All right, Simon.
Going back to what Joseph said, I mean, our first consideration is around the classification of the data. And obviously, depending on the classification, is what controls are needed to protect that data. So one of the first things I would say is we need a strategy on how we're going to manage identity access management. And I mean, the question is really around multiple platforms. A number of platforms will have a number of options on how they can do IAM. And it is potentially aligning them so we are all using the same solution. So we go back to that single source of truth, rather than putting multiple platforms in place that have got multiple different solutions. So we say having that strategy so that we all use, this is our corporate solution, we're going to use this IAM platform, therefore all systems are aligned to it. So and therefore you can then integrate your on-prem and your cloud solutions to that same solution.
Okay, Ricky.
Thanks, John. Well, I agree with my fellow panelists. The one thing that I think we do need to mention is that there isn't a congruent system at the moment that aligns for every organization. So what we find when we work with clients and customers internationally designing these systems is that it's quite higgledy-piggledy. There's lots of multi-cloud platforms, different technologies out there. And the biggest challenge that the customer has is actually getting something that will work with all the environments. So there's obviously a lot of people involved. So we need to consider the people, and that's quite important. And the people are first. They come first in every strategy or technology implementation that's out there, because they're the ones that are going to have to be using it, the admins and the users themselves. The technology, you can make it do whatever the limit of the technology is, depending on what the capability of the technology is. But what I'm saying here is it's really difficult to find the right technology for this particular solution, because of how spread out it is. If you look at something like Google Cloud or Microsoft Cloud or AWS, there's just quite a few things that are quite spread out, and to make it all work together is quite challenging. There are vendors out there that do have a very good way of making IAM work, but it does take a lot of implementing. Let's just put it that way. And then you've got the processes that people tend not to follow very well. So that means that they could come in from anywhere and then bypass your IAM solution. So you do need to have that focus centrally, so that your applications and the stuff you're trying to protect are behind your IAM solution, and there aren't any holes and leakage. So my final answer is it's with difficulty. It's not easy stuff to do.
Yeah.
All right.
When you say how, with difficulty.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that one. Okay, excellent. So that's one question down.